attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our thesis writing webinar workshop. Just a few logistical things to kind of talk about a little bit before we go ahead and get right into the presentation. And, of course, if you have any questions, there's a couple of different options. And because it's a small group today, I would encourage you to use the two options on the right. So the first one is questions. If you have a question throughout the presentation, depending, we might be able to stop and answer that question. That's typically what I like to do. But at the same time, you can just chat your questions at the bottom there as well. Again, pretty informal because it is a small group. But I do want to make sure that you have all of your questions answered, moving forward. I also am recording this, so if for some reason you wanted to go back and review the video of what was discussed, I will be working on getting that available to you, hopefully by the end of today, if not first thing tomorrow. Also want to make sure if anyone has a hard time hearing me, you can certainly let me know and I'll try to adjust my settings on this end. So go ahead and get started. So this presentation is really to help some of our master's programs that do have the thesis requirement. Predominantly, we found this workshop is for our curriculum and instruction students, but of course, anyone else that is planning on doing a thesis, this certainly benefits as well. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the overview of the thesis requirements for specific academic programs, the thesis writing format and guidelines that SUNY Potsdam has adopted for graduate students. Just a couple quick comments for C&I students pertaining to task stream, and some of these things you might already know, but it's always good to review. Then we're going to really the core of this presentation talks a little bit about the IRB board and a little bit about what it is, the process for applying, and the importance of getting the approval prior to being able to actually work on your thesis and do your research. And again, your faculty advisor and program coordinator certainly very familiar with this and help you through this process. But we wanted to make sure we covered a little bit of an introduction to you about what are some of the requirements and things like that. We want to talk a little bit about the Center for Student Research. You might have heard about this prior to this academic semester. It was traditionally the Center for Undergraduate Student Research, really strictly funded by this Title III grant that SUNY Potsdam had. The best part now is that it actually is open to all students on campus, and we just want to make sure that you have access to those different things. And then last, we just want to talk a little bit about the importance of research and projects, not just for completing your academic requirements, but how important it is in terms of kind of helping you with your career and networking and so on and so forth. So as far as the thesis guidelines, if you haven't been given this copy prior to this workshop, we do have it available on the Graduate Studies website, and it's under Find a Form. So if you just type in potsdam.edu/grad studies, and then you'll see the link for Find a Form, and you'll find the PDF document available there for download. So I say refer to handout with the assumption that if we were doing this in person, but again, you can refer to that at any time if you want to toggle back and forth between this and the webinar. But there is, signatures are required. Actually, you also are signing with permissions to copy and permissions as far as the use of your thesis, but your program coordinator or your advisor, as well as graduate studies, is required to sign off on your thesis. You'll see that kind of in the guidelines where it shows the different signatures page. So just make sure that you do obtain your original signatures, and then depending on each program, some might want an original copy of your thesis for their office, but the only original that is really required is to come to graduate studies, which we sign off on and then send to the library. As far as print copies, like I said, the original copy comes to us for binding to the college archives. And as I mentioned, depending on how many copies you need to make, you can certainly come to us. And we do have the Resource Center for graduate students now, and we'd be happy to help you if you're not able to get copies that you need. The digital copy. So on the checklist and on the actual thesis guidelines, you'll see that it does require an equality CDR, and I think today every CDR is really quite fine, but was mentioned as a high quality CDR. They're afraid of obviously anything happening to the copies, but you do have to provide a digital copy along with your paper copy. And the important thing is that your paper or your digital copy of your thesis needs to be in one document. So you might be printing, different portions of your thesis separately, but it is important for you to actually combine all of that into one digital copy for your CD. And again, the one piece about the binding is if you wanted to bind a thesis for yourself, obviously it's the responsibility of the student, and that's something that we could potentially help you with as well. And some students do like to do that just to have as a momentum to all the many hours that you'll spend doing this. General formatting, I was asked to put this into the webinar. Obviously, you need to buy acid-free paper. That's pretty common. And we actually just approved one that Staples had. It was acid-free paper, but it was a multi-purpose paper that was acid-free, which actually the cost is significantly less. So the cost of these things are coming down, which is good. But just know that you have to print your original thesis on acid-free paper. It is available in the bookstore here, but you can get it pretty much at any other office supply store. Traditional 8.5 by 11 paper, font and spacing. It is required that you use Times New Roman, Arial, 12-point font, and double spaced. And then the key here is making sure that your left margin is 1.75 inches. That's not standard. So when you open up a Word document, it's really 1 inch all around is standard. So just want to make sure that you adjust your margins to 1.75. As far as the style, what we're talking about here is the style of writing, really being more about your citations and your things like that. So you want to make sure you know what particular style of writing is required. Traditional education programs, APA style is preferred, and that's typically what you're going to be writing in, but again, it's good to check with your department and your program. As far as the thesis organization, there's 4 standard pages, title page, signature page, permission to copy page, which we talked about earlier, and then your abstract. And all that comes before the actual content of your thesis. And the sample of each of these pages is included in that packet that you can download. Okay, that's pretty straightforward stuff, but it is important to cover because I would hate to have to send back a thesis after you've got it printed and done all the work to get it sent in. This is for curriculum instruction students specifically. What was asked of us is to mention that as you complete the coursework for your program, there is the curriculum and instruction folio that you'll have where you'll upload all of these assignments. And in order to properly conduct assessment for the program and so on, Dr. Valentine has asked that just to make sure that in order for graduation to occur, that you've got to get all of these things uploaded to this. And this includes the city program, the different teacher assessment projects, the IRB proposal, and so on. Any questions that you have pertaining to the folio, specifically on TaskStream, you can direct those questions to Dr. Valentine since it is specific to her program. But as I mentioned, those are the list of the different actual sections, and you'll complete these different components in different courses throughout the program. So it really is just a matter of uploading them to TaskStream. This is not additional work to the classwork that you're already doing. Okay, in true partnership and collaboration form, I'm going to pass this over to our Assistant Director, Pete Cutler, who's going to talk to you, kind of walk you through the Institutional Review Board, what it is, the steps, and the important things that you need to consider as you're preparing your application for your thesis topic. Pete?
Thanks, Josh. Good afternoon. So first, I need to have a disclaimer that I am not the Institutional Review Board. I don't serve on the Institutional Review Board, so I will not be reviewing any of your research. This is merely an informative PowerPoint just for your information. So what is the purpose of the IRB? Basically, you can see on the screen, the IRB is ensuring adequate protection of human participants in research through informed consent, voluntary participation, risk-benefit analysis, and efforts to minimize risk, confidentiality, ensuring compliance with federal regulations governing research with human participants. And so this is taken from the smooth sailing through the IRB process. It's a PowerPoint that you can find online on the SUNY Potsdam website. Where do these regulations come from? They are from the Department of Health and Human Services policy for the protection of human subjects. And you can see on the screen exactly if you want to look that up. This is something that occurred out of a historical perspective, out of the mistreatment of several people in the World War II era. And the IRB is in place at our school to serve as the protection of human subjects. So you can see that the Office of Human Research and Protections in the Department of Health and Human Services is what the governing body is beyond Potsdam. So what the IRB at Potsdam has is an interpretation of the federal regulations. And to read them, if you're very interested in knowing the ins and outs beyond this presentation, they are available on the SUNY Potsdam IRB website. Simply, the SUNY Potsdam IRB says that research is a systematic investigation designed to develop, this is the federal guideline, I'm sorry. The federal guideline states that it is a systematic investigation designed to develop or contribute to a generalizable knowledge. And a human subject is a living individual about whom an investigator conducting research obtains, 1, data through intervention or interaction with the individual, or 2, identifiable private information. And you can see the gist of this is that we need to partner with the institutional review board so that we have monitors on all of the research that is being conducted so no one is harmed. So the institutional research is if it's part of a program or service evaluation and intended solely for the purpose of monitoring or improving the effectiveness or quality of the program or service being evaluated, and not for the purpose of contributing to the generalizable knowledge about such programs, in other words, not published or distributed, and poses no more risk than minimal to participants, that is not subject to IRB approval. So you can avoid the IRP completely if you meet these parameters. Make sense? However, when in doubt, if you are collecting data from people, or if you're using information that's been collected from people who are currently living, then you need to contact the IRB whether or not your project requires IRB review. So there are different types of the IRB review process. We have a full board review, and that is required for people who are doing research of vulnerable populations, minimal risk, more than minimal risk. They may involve deceptions. They may be happening in a different country. They may be paying the participants. And these types of things really need full board review. There is an expedited review. To qualify for the expedited review, your research needs to be from a group that has characteristics for behavioral research using the survey or interview or focus groups methodology. So it's pretty non-invasive, unless, and this is the stipulation, the research involves deception, vulnerable populations, being paid remunerations for participation or work in another country. So if you want to go through an expedited process, and most of the research at the graduate level at SUNY Potsdam will be done through the expedited process, these are the parameters for that. There is also the possibility of being exempted from the IRB. If you want to be exempted, your research has to be using survey procedures if the participants are elected or appointed public officials or candidates for public office. You can also be exempted if you're studying existing data, if the source is publicly available and the information is recorded in such a way that the subject cannot be identified. And in that case, you do not need IRB approval. So This this type of research typically is done in the beginning of a thesis project where you're defining a problem and you're doing background research. So for that, you don't need IRB approval, and if you continue with just that alone, you definitely don't need IRB approval. As part of the IRB approval application, in order to get the approval for the IRB, in other words, what you're going to need to complete is the CITI training. And CITI is an acronym you can see on your screen. It stands for Collaborative Institutional Training Initiative. It's a course found online at the website you see in front of you. The GRED 635 Educational Research course taught by Dr. Valentine in the Curriculum and Instruction Department does include, as a part of the program, CITI training, and this is also found on the folio for the curriculum and instruction students. So after you've completed the CITI training, you have 3 years, and that certification is good for 3 years. If you don't complete the CITI training, for SUNY Potsdam purposes for the IRB, they will not approve your research project. So after you complete the CITI training, you will be able to print out a certificate, and that can be included in your application. It must be included with your application to the IRB from SUNY Potsdam. Along with your application for the IRB, you also need to include your consent and assent forms, and there are templates of these on our website. We also have recruitment materials and data collection tools. And all of this needs to be submitted in an electronic and paper copy to the IRB chair, she's on the second floor of Raymond Hall, Joanna. What's her last name? Joanna. She's found on our website. You can easily find her. So. Okay, so the IRB, after reviewing your research, will have a decision, and the decision will be one of the following. They can either approve your research and let you continue. They can defer approval pending minor modifications. They can ask you to resubmit with major revisions, or they can flat out disapprove. Most of the research going through the IRB from SUNY Potsdam graduate students is going to be asked for a resubmission or deferred for approval for pending minor modifications. In other words, you can expect in most cases that when you submit something to the IRB, they will ask you for a minor modification, which you can make, and then they will defer that approval until such time as it's completed. These are resources that you can take with you to find more information and to investigate more about what I was telling you. They have the SUNY Potsdam IRB website, which has a number of great resources, and the full application, which you can download from our SUNY Potsdam website. You can also feel free to contact the IRB chairs and members for individual meetings. They are people working on campus, and they are here to help you. If you're interested in the schedule and the logistics of applying to the IRB, the proposal deadlines and meeting schedules are also available in the reporter. And we have IRB decisions also listed in the reporter. We have a question. The question, I'll stop here. The question is, you would not need your subjects reviewed by the IRB if you were interviewing an adult teacher, would you? That is what you would call a gray area. In most cases, it would be at least an expedited review. In some cases, it would be exempt. A lot depends on the type of surveying that you're going to be doing and the investigation. The general theme of our IRB presentation this afternoon is going to be that when you're in doubt, send it along to the IRB for review. So in certain cases, no, you would not need it, but because of some cases, absolutely needing it, you would definitely want to send that along to IRB approval.
And I would also just add too to see Dr. Valentine if you're in the CNI program, because she actually will help you fill out the application and whatnot. And because she's gone through this with many students, she can think of anecdotal times where if a certain student's project lines up well with what you're looking to do, she'll know what the answer is too. So it really does depend. Without knowing what specifically you're going to do, unfortunately, can't give you a straight answer because it is, as Pete said, a gray area. So, but please feel free to continue asking questions, and certainly we'll just continue on here. The last piece that we wanted to talk about was a little bit a little bit around support and development, because again, when we think about writing a thesis, you're doing research, you're gaining new knowledge, you're actually discovering new knowledge, and really coming up with something great. And yes, it's for a grade. Yes, it's for a degree, but you can also leverage this kind of work when it comes to networking for a position, or really looking to get some experiences under your belt pertaining to sharing your research. So the first thing I want to do is just encourage you to visit the Center for Student Research. The Center for Student Research, again, it's a collaboration with faculty. It's led by a faculty member out of the community health department, and it's really about mentorship, kind of helping you as well as through your research, but helping you with idea generation and so on and so forth. And it's a great tool that is neutral to any academic program. So if you're looking for another perspective, this is certainly a place to go. They also do offer workshops throughout the year. So in the spring, they will likely offer some workshops that we'll certainly try to promote as well. But it's definitely something to keep in mind when you're looking at different ideas. There is a student travel grant that you could be awarded. And in some cases, the Graduate Studies Office is also interested in supporting that as well. But I think the deadline has passed for this semester, but there is one coming up for the spring, and it is also, information on this is in this week's Graduate Studies Weekly. So I would encourage you to check your email, download, or go to our website and download the most recent newsletter, and there's additional information in there about that. So if you don't know where to start, you need some different perspectives. They are over in McVicker 102, which is between McVicker and Carson, and it's just near Becky's place. So when you go in from the quad side to head towards Becky's place, you take a right, and they're just down the hall on the right. And their website is listed right there. You can just type in Center for Student Research on the Potsdam website search, and it should pop right up. So when I talk about showcasing your work and how that can benefit you, one of the things that I wanted to make sure of is that you knew that there are lots of different ways that you can do this. So professional conferences, poster sessions, blogging, sharing a little bit about what you've learned. It looks great on your resume. It's a great networking piece, some things that you can talk about when you're meeting potential employers, or you're meeting different folks that really have the contacts that you need. And again, it's career experiences, putting on your resume that you presented your research at a conference, and really kind of getting out there really has a lot of benefits outside of just your academic program. So just a couple of examples there. We soft launched a blog this fall called the Graduate Studies Advocate, and you are certainly welcome to contribute to that. We are always looking for students to just really share what they're doing, and certainly would love for people to do it. Obviously, everyone's busy, so anything that you wanted to add, because you could always link to your posts from there. I will also be sharing this early in the spring semester, but there is a master's level research conference that's held at SUNY Brockport in April. And I am going to be offering to fund students that would like to present their research and submit their proposals to present their research. Probably going to get a big van together and go down. So certainly something to keep in the back of your mind as a great opportunity to get out there and help with professional networking. So basically, here's some contacts. The Center for Student Research, which is, again, the director is Dr. Kelly Bonner from the Community Health Department. Of course, you could always come and see us at any time. Curriculum and Instruction will be Dr. Valentine. And then the Institutional Review Board is Johanna Sullivan. She is a part-time employee, so I think she's only here Tuesday through Thursday. But there is a specific website, or excuse me, well, yeah, there is a website, but then also email and contact information. And I certainly would encourage you to schedule an appointment. But then, of course, just contact any of your professors. Everyone is here to help support you. Many of them have experience going through the IRB process, whether it's here with students or even themselves when they're doing research on this, as far as their profession as well. So certainly want to reach out and use your resources that are available to you. So I believe that is actually all of the rest of the actual presentation itself. We wanted to keep it relatively short, but making sure that we cover the specific points about the IRB process. But if you have any questions, you certainly are welcome to type them in here, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you have. But otherwise, we do appreciate you joining us today for this workshop, and certainly hope that it helped prepare you and start to make you aware of some of the things that you'll have to be doing. One thing I wanted to mention quickly too, I'm thinking in my head, on the website you can download the specific application forms. And again, if you wanted to download those, if you had any questions, certainly let us know. And Dr. Valentine can tell you which ones you will definitely need and which ones you could ignore, because there are some forms that likely will not apply to you and your specific research project. Did you want to add anything, Pete? Well, again, thank you very much for joining us. I'm just going to stop the recording, but I'll keep this up here for just a few more minutes if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask.